In your opinion, you've been there twice. This is your second time. You love Spain. Where are the up and coming towns or places, if you know of any, that are still really affordable and they're really unique places to consider?
A good area, an up and coming area that's not been fully discovered or exploited, if I can use that word, that's not quite the right word, is the Costa de la Luz, which is the extreme southwest of Spain.
So today we're going to head over to the beautiful country of Spain with my friend, my new friend, Michael Bailey. Michael, thank you so much for doing the podcast.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, let me introduce. So you're in Benicassim, right? Benicassim?
Benicassim, yep, you got it right.
Okay. Michael, tell us a little bit about your backstory and how you landed in this beautiful place in Spain.
Well, I like Spain so much, I've actually moved to the country twice in my life.
Oh, wow.
First time was in 1999. I came from the UK, which is where I'm from, to work in a company in Madrid. And I worked for them for several years until 2011, and they finally nicely gave me redundancy. 2011 wasn't such a good time for work in Spain at that time, so I went back to the UK. And I think a bit like the Moors when they left Spain, they looked back with the sigh. I looked back with the sigh, and I promised myself I would come back. And to cut a long story short, and getting through Brexit, I managed to come back to Spain last October. The reason I'm in Benicassim is largely due to my partner, but we were looking for somewhere to move around Valencia. And we kept looking further north up the coast. And she said, why don't we try Benicassim? And Benicassim has many festivals, many music festivals and other art exhibitions throughout the year. And I'd heard of a music festival which is for young rave techno people, and I thought, well, that's a bit of a drop den. Maybe we shouldn't go there. But I tell you what, don't be fooled by that. You come to Benicassim, it is wonderful.
Mhm.
It has something about it. And even people I speak to in Benicassim, I've said that to them, and they said, you're right. For example, there's people here, Spanish people that are not from Benicassim, they've lived here for years, and it's just got something about it. You're
Huh.
right. It's physically, it's got the beaches, it's got the 320 days of sun a year that the Spanish tourist authority talk about, and that's all true. But it's just such. It's got your mountains behind. You can do walks and hikes and cycling. You've got the beaches. You've got all the water sports. You've got culture and art, and there's always something going on. In fact, you can't keep up with it. You walk around the corner, and all of a sudden there's a group playing in the street, and someone says, "Oh yes, it's the jazz festival this week." Well, I never knew. So
Hmm.
it's always something going on.
Wow, that's awesome. It's awesome to discover places like this. And the first thing that comes to mind to me when it seems like it offers almost everything, you got beaches and you got a vibrant community. I think it's very international, so you're not going to have issues with having to fully speak Spanish right off the bat as you're acclimating to a new culture because there's a lot of people from a variety of different places living here, such as yourself. So the first thing that comes to mind is it affordable there? When you have all of these wonderful amenities, what can you find to rent for these days in there? And then if people are interested in buying real estate, what is like an apartment or a flat going for in that area?
Well, in terms of rental, as always, it's what do you need and what are you looking for and how sort of up market, down market do you want to go? I would say for say a two-bedroom apartment, and if it's on the beach, it's going to be more.
Sure.
You could be looking something around 800,000 euros a month. You can pay more, you can pay a bit less. The thing to do is there is a couple of sites, real estate sites, idealista.com and photocasa.com, where you can, if you're moving to Benicassim or any other area in Spain, you can check your area out. You can see what's available and the sort of costs you can be looking at. But
Hmm.
I would say for round about these 1,000 euro mark, you're going to get somewhere that's decent, that's reasonable, and you're going to be happy with.
Okay. So that's for a two bedroom or a one bedroom?
I'd say two bedroom.
Okay.
Yeah, I've heard of one bedrooms going for 800, 600 to 800 euros. But they're perhaps on the lower side of from a quality point of view.
Okay, so you can find stuff for 600 to 800, but it's a one bedroom.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, that's in my experience. That's what I've heard and seen.
Okay. And is that further away from the beach or?
Yeah, that wouldn't be on the beach. That would be well, I was going to say that's an interesting point. That would be in nearer towards the town, but depending on how fast you walk, the beach is only 10 minutes walk away. So where I actually live is I'm just short of the town and just but further away from the beach. It's 7 minutes to the beach, 3 minutes to the town, and that's quite common for anywhere around here. You're not going to be far away from either one of those areas.
Okay, so that's pretty ideal. So you can find an apartment in the 600 to 800 range, and you don't have to drive to the beach. You can walk to the beach, or you can ride your bike to the beach.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
That's pretty convenient. So let's say you live 3 or 4 kilometers further away from the beach. Do the
Mhm.
do the rentals drop?
That depends. I would say probably no. If
Okay.
anything, they might go up a bit because
Oh,
when you go up to the next town, that is where a lot of the footballers, professional footballers from the local teams live, and so they tend to put prices up. So you probably won't get much below. No, the lowest you're going to get is probably in Benicassim itself. But the advantage of being in of being in Benicassim, it's as I say, you've got everything around you. You've got all the amenities, got
hmm.
centre, supermarkets, anything you need, it's here.
Yeah. Now, how about for people interested in purchasing one of those flats? What do they typically go for?
Again, there for 2 bedroom flats, I've seen sort of start at about 400,000 euros.
Oh, wow.
That's a bit pricey. The Spanish housing market moves quite slowly. What you tend to find is the Spanish will hold out a lot longer for the price they want than perhaps other cultures. So the price they ask is probably what they're going to accept. Um,
Hmm.
so the other thing, especially for US people, in Spain there is a property purchase tax as well, which tends to slow the market down
Hmm.
because that's another cost that I believe that US citizens don't have.
Hmm. Do you know how much that property tax is?
That's it's 6 to 10%, I think, of the purchase price of the house. So that's it's not
Okay.
insignificant.
Okay, so that's something upfront that you have to pay right away.
Yeah, when you buy a house, the advice I would give to people is if when you come here is to take a short-term let, make sure you in the area you choose, make sure you like that area, and then but if you decide you do, then go for a longer term let, or if you're really committed to it, then buy after that.
Hmm.
That's I mean, I work for a company called movingtospain.com, which is like a one-stop shop to help people move to Spain. And that's the advice we give people, generally speaking. What we really counsel against is coming here and buying straight away, because if for any reason you need to sell quickly, that's going to cost you.
So today I'd like to thank our sponsor, Moving to Spain. Are you dreaming of moving to Spain but not sure where to start? Moving to Spain has you covered. Their all-inclusive planning packages make the process smooth and stress-free, guiding you through every step, from visa applications to finding housing, even setting up healthcare. And healthcare is something you need prior to moving to Spain. Whether you're moving alone or with a family, they offer expert advice tailored to your needs. So to get started with moving to Spain, you can click on the link in the description below, or you can select the QR code on the screen right here and let them help you turn your dream into a reality. Yeah. Okay. Good advice. Um, all right. So it sounds to me basically by what you described in pricing, Benicassim is not a very cheap place to live in Spain. You're gonna pay a pretty good nickel to purchase a property there.
In terms of property, yes, I would agree with that. It's not the poorest place in Spain, shall we say.
Hmm.
But in terms of costs outside of buying a house, in terms of groceries or utilities, that kind of thing, along with the rest of Spain, it's really quite reasonable. And things like going to restaurants. So I'm comparing to the UK now,
Yeah.
but it's definitely a lot cheaper. I would say compared to the UK, which I imagine might be the same as the US, I'm not sure. Spain is probably 25% cheaper in terms of groceries going out, that kind of thing.
Okay, great. Yeah, because we'll dive into all that too. All right, good. So, okay, so let's dive into the visa. So it sounds like you moved back to Spain after Brexit, so you lost the euro, your European.
I did.
Oh, that's such a bad timing, but hey, so you're on some form of visa, and so is your wife. Is your wife from Spain, or is she from the UK as well?
No, she's from the UK as well. We're both British.
Okay.
And so she's fulfilled her dream of moving to Spain as well. So we're on two different visas. The reason being is that my wife is retired and I am still or semi-retired, but I am still working. So there are two main visas I would recommend to people. One is called the non-lucrative visa, which is normally referred to as NLV.
NLV, yep.
And as the name suggests, when you come across on that visa, you can't work in Spain on that. You have to have passive income, which is generally pensions or investments. And then when you get that visa, having proved to the authorities that you can support yourself, and
Hey,
there's a
Michael, I got a
yes,
quick question because people always ask me about this.
yeah,
You just said, now I've heard this and I've interviewed people in Spain and Lexity.com, who's a lawyer who spoke on this NLV where you can't work in Spain.
yes,
But let me ask you this. I mean, there's so many people that are working digitally and they're working online.
yeah.
And they have these gigs online and they're making money online. Can you do that with the NLV, even though it's not taking a job away from Spain? Let's say you're working for a company in the UK or you're working for a company in the US.
You cannot do that on an NLV. You cannot have
Yeah.
any
Wow.
gainful employment on an NLV. However, you can do that with the visa that I have, which is called the Digital Nomad Visa, DNV.
Okay.
That is it. That with you can do exactly what you said on that. There are certain rules and regulations around that. For example, 80% of your revenue has to come from companies outside of Spain, and you will have to be self-employed. Sorry, you either have to be a contractor with a non-Spanish company who then gives you permission to work in Spain, or
Mhm.
you can be, in my case, self-employed, and I'm in the Spanish social security system as a freelancer. So I pay into social security, but the visa gives me the right to work remotely in Spain.
Okay. Are you working with a Spaniard company or are you working for the UK?
I've got a couple of clients, cybersecurity clients who are outside of Spain.
Okay.
And, and I'm also working for movingtospain.com that I mentioned before, who are registered in the UK. So that counts as a non-Spanish company.
Michael, do you know what the minimum income requirements are for the NLV and the DNV?
For the NLV, it's something like 30, yeah, 30,000 euros for the first year. Then you have to renew after that first year, and you have to show funds for the further 2 years because you renew for 2 years after that. So
Okay.
you would need to show revenue or funds of 60,000 euros at the end of that.
Okay.
After the 3 years, you renew again. If you stay for 5 years, you then have the option to get permanent residence, not nationality, but a permanent residence in Spain. So after
Right.
5 years. So
Okay.
for the digital nomad visa, you have to earn it's a multiple of the minimum wage in Spain, and that's fixed by the government every year. At the moment, you have to earn about 33,000 euros a year as the minimum requirement for that.
Okay. So you need 35K per year for the digital nomad visa. Okay. So once you hit the second year, you need to show 60,000. And then the residency, once you apply for residency in Spain, can you obtain a passport in Spain?
Uh, Not a Spanish passport. You have to be a Spanish citizen for that. And Spain doesn't do dual nationality anyway. So you'd have to, if you could do that, which you can't, you'd have to renounce your nationality.
Oh, okay.
What happens with the NOV is it's the visa which gives you entry to the country, and also it gives you a residency permit as well. So you have to apply for what they call an NIE, which is basically your number in Spain, your social registered number. and
Hmm.
it's actually it's a foreigner's identification number.
Sure.
And then with that, you then get what's called a TIE, which is an actual, just basically the physical card with your number on. And that's the card that opens up everything to how do you operate in Spain, whether you're dealing with the local council or whether you have to, prove your identity in any shape or form. So that you then apply for your NIE and TIE after you're granted the visa.
Hmm.
That doesn't mean you're a Spanish citizen. What it grants you is the right to be in Spain and to live in Spain.
Okay. All right, great. All right. Well, thanks for that. That's very helpful. Let's break down some of these costs now. So we talked about rentals.
Mhm.
Um, do any of the rentals include utilities, or are they typically separate in Spain?
So they're separate. You have to pay
Okay.
on top of that. I've very rarely heard of where it's all inclusive.
Okay. And what are the costs breakdown for the utilities over there?
Um, Again, it depends. I mean, for example, I am fully on electricity. All my heating, my aircon, and water is on electricity. We're two people in a three-bedroom house. We're paying €100 a month at the moment, maybe sometimes a bit less, but nothing more than that. We haven't paid more than that.
Okay.
But I do know, generally speaking, if some people have electricity and then have gas for the cooking and other things as well. And so you can be, on average, I'd say, if you budgeted between 100 and €120 a month, this is for two people in, say, a two
Mhm.
or three bedroom place, that would be over the year, that would probably be okay.
And that's including electricity, water, um, and gas and
Yeah, that would be including everything. Water is actually surprisingly cheap here, which you would have thought it doesn't quite make sense because in terms of it's hot all the time, people are watering their gardens, but the water prices are surprisingly not expensive.
now if you have a one bedroom,
Mhm.
guessing that the utilities for a one bedroom apartment would be quite a bit less or no?
I'd say there would be, yes. I wouldn't say they're half of two bedroom, but there would be less, I'm sure. I
Okay.
mean, we have. I mean, you'd have one less aircon unit for a start if you had one less bedroom, so that's always going to help.
Okay. And you live in a three bedroom, two bath house?
Yes,
Are you renting or did you buy?
we're renting that. I took my own advice when we came here. We are renting. We have a house in the UK which we rent out there,
I
uh,
see.
but we done exactly the advice. We're looking to see if we like this area. We actually do, so we know we're not going anywhere. So
Hmm.
now we're starting to look out for possible places where we want to buy. We're not in a hurry, but we're on a long-term let, which is a 12-month let. So that we'll renew that when that comes up. But
Hmm.
we'll look to buy.
And where did you find your rental?
We found that through local estate agents, which
Okay.
I would recommend. When you go on the two websites I mentioned, the Yolista and Fotocasa, the agent that's showing the place is mentioned. And a thing to remember in Spain is that one house can be on with many agents, not just one. There's very rarely exclusivity. So, and you may even find that the rent through one agent for a same house is different rent from another agent. So
Hmm.
again, for example, if you were looking at Benicassim, I would get the websites of the local agencies and check them out.
Okay. All right, great. How about grocery? What do you pay per month for groceries for you too? And what do you think one individual would pay per month?
Yeah, I think if again if you don't go mad and you're not going to buy lots of alcohol every month and
Yeah.
things like that. I mean, let's say these. No, let's say we're being reasonable on that one. I think €400 a month. You'd be okay on that.
Okay.
That's for two people. One person you probably get away with 300 to 320.
300. I would imagine that the people that first move over to Spain, their grocery budgets are just huge because they're getting like all kinds of like sangria and they're buying Spanish wine and they're
That is absolutely correct, and it's not just the alcohol; it's the meats and the cheeses that are just one.
yes.
And you just go down the road and you just take everything up. But then you calm down, and then you
Yeah.
realize,
Then things normalize and you're like going, okay, we need the budget here.
yeah.
That's
So
great.
in terms of that, I mean, you €400 a month, you've got your groceries. But then going out to restaurants is so much cheaper here.
Mhm.
Absolutely. I mean, again, depend on the level of restaurant. If you just go to a normal, regular, standard restaurant, you can have a nice dinner for, I'd say, 30 to 35 euros per head.
Hmm.
And that's going to be, a reasonable standard. That's not going to be anything bad.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
other thing they have here is the menu del dias, which is like the daily menu. A lot of restaurants put on. And for something as little as between 10 and 20 euros a head, you get a three-course meal with a choice of four starters and one of four mains, and then you get a dessert and a coffee and a coffee. And usually
What's,
there's a drink included as well, a soft drink or a beer or a wine or something.
and that's the daily menu?
Yeah, it's called Menú del Día in Spanish, and it's actually came from Franco started that because he wanted everyone to have at least this one square meal a day. So he
Yeah.
mandated that the restaurants do that, and they've carried it on ever since.
The menu del dia. I like that. Okay. So what do you think people would need to budget, or what are you guys budgeting per month for going out to eat?
Well, I don't know about the budget, but what I will say is that we used to go out to eat about maybe two or three times a month in the UK. We go out at least two times a week now.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, I mean, we could probably, again, we go to some top end restaurants and we go sometimes just for a quick snack. So I'd say on average, you could say 300 or 400 euros a month if you wanted to go out two or three times a week.
Hmm. That's you. It's for somebody single, like I'm guessing you do about 200 maybe.
Yeah. I'm sorry, all the numbers I've given you are for two. So yeah, I mean that you would actually halve that, yes, for one.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, let's dive into things to do around there. You kind of mentioned that there's a lot of music festivals and but what do typically people do around Benicassim?
There's a lot of arts around here as well. There's okay. Let's start with the music festivals. There's a jazz festival. There's a flamenco festival. There's the FIB, which is the International Music Festival, and then there's another music festival which is mainly for Spanish speakers. So you've got four or five festivals a year, and then outside of that, you've got the lot of bars and places put on live music. So if you like music, you like music, you're covered. There's
Hmm.
also lots of art exhibitions. There's in Benicassim along the promenade. There's what they call the villas, which were all built between 1920 and 1940. A lot of history, for example, Ernest Hemingway stayed in one of them and things like that. And they have a 1 week of what they call the Belle Epoque, the beautiful era, which is in French. I don't know why they do that in French. And so there was lots of exhibitions down there, art exhibitions, people walking around in the dress of the age, and there was children's magicians and conjurers and things like that. So that's those kind of things. And then there's the annual fiesta that each town in Spain tends to have. Benicassim, we just had ours finished last week, but Benicassim is different. We have two. We have another one in January. I don't know why, but we do. So that's there is ball running there, and things like that. But there's lots of there's paella competitions.
Mm.
And with these giant paellas that people cook, and they cook them in the streets. The main street in Benicassim is closed, and they make fires on the actual tarmac with sand underneath, and
Mm.
all along there there's people cooking paella, and
Mm.
it's absolutely wonderful to behold. Um, and if you're into more active pursuits, you can cycle, you can walk. There's the old railroad track between here and the next town is probably about 5 miles, and there's a track there that people walk and cycle along. Water sports, you name it, they've got it because we're by the sea. Um, and there's just things pop up everywhere. What we've tended to do now is we make sure we go to the tourist office because they know what's coming up. And there's been more than one occasion where we've gone in there to find information about an event and seen a poster on the wall for another event we didn't even know about and gone to that as well. So,
Hmm.
um, and again, there's a cinema here, and they show films in what they call the version original, which is the original language, English and French and German. And again, that's really cheap. That's €3 to go to see a film in the cinema. So
Oh,
that's
nice.
there's no cost to that to talk about really.
Nice. Do they have any landmarks or ruins that people come to that particular region to see?
Not as such. There are, but there's towers along the coast that used to be used as watchtowers back in the sort of the pirate days. They tried to make sort of tourist things out of that.
Hmm.
But when people do come and to watch to look at those, you go up those. There's a monastery up the road that make various drinks, liqueurs, and very strong drinks, and so they have tours around there.
Oh, interesting.
So, there is a lot to do there. I mean, the advice I would give is even if you come here for a holiday, is go to the tourist office and check out all the information there. If you're going to live here, then there's a lot of local sites, event sites, and even the bars put on information about what's going on and what you can do.
Yeah.
And I would say there's pretty much something for everyone. If you have children, there's loads of children's things. Oh, there's the other thing. There is a steam train park in the middle of Benicassim for
Oh,
miniature steam trains, which again, I think that's quite famous. People come from all over to see that. So whether you've got kids, whether you're maybe more sedentary and you don't want to do all the activity that there's exhibitions, arts, and you can get there's some nice walks around, the gentle walks. There's
mhm.
a quite flat area down by the beach, and you can just and you can watch the sunsets and things like that.
It sounds great. It sounds like there's a lot of things to do. It sounds like a lot of the things that you do there are really, there's no cost to them with a lot of these activities. So if you
Yeah,
had to break it down or put a number on a monthly kind of budget for people that are really watching their budget, what do you think you'd pay per month for this type of entertainment or things to do?
well, not much. I mean, you're
Yeah.
talking tens of euros, I think, that
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff is free to enter. I mean, this is not for everybody, but I like to watch. There's beach volleyball, there's beach football, and those tournaments are on, and that you just go down and watch, and they're free
Hmm.
entertainment. So, yeah, tens of euros, nothing more than that.
Okay, great. Okay, let's talk transportation. How do people get around the town? It sounds like it's a very walkable place, but are scooters popular or most people have vehicles? Do they have a public transportation system, a bus system?
Yeah, we got again, you're right. People, it's you can get around. You don't have to go far. So if you want to walk, you can. But people have there are quite a few scooters around. Most people have cars, but then most Spanish have cars anyway, no matter whether they need them.
Yeah.
I have a car. I hardly use it. Mainly I work from home, so I don't have to travel to work. But there is a good bus system connecting to Castellon, which is the next city down the road, and then on to Valencia and certain surrounding towns. And the interconnection between the towns by bus is very good, and it's frequent and it's very cheap. You're talking a couple of euros for quite a long journey.
Okay.
Train the same. We have a train station that is one of those ones that the sort of fast trains do stop at. They don't go through them every day. So you can get to places like Barcelona and Valencia very easily.
Hmm.
For example, I just looked up the cost of a return ticket to Valencia from here. It's 12 euros.
Okay.
Actually it's a state-run railway, but it's an example of a state-run industry that does actually work. Not
Mhm.
perfect, but it does actually work. So
Mhm.
um, if you like going getting the train ride you can get to places quite easily, and the buses are good as well. Um,
Okay. Yeah. How far are you from Barcelona? And
Barcelona by driving is probably 2.5 hours, maybe 3 hours if
okay.
you take it easy. So, and then Valencia down south is probably an hour, just over an hour to drive.
Okay. And how much would you say a person needs the budget to get around Benicassim?
Yeah, I mean, if you could, I suppose, if you're in the complete southern end of Benicassim, which it's probably about 5 kilometers long in that sense, you might get a bus. So that'd be a couple of €3 if you did that um, twice a day, 5 days a week. That's what 6 30 euros, 30 euros a week. But again, people, if you're going in Benicassim, you either just quickly drive up to the car park, which is free, by the way. Parking is free in
Hmm.
Benicassim. Um, so you just drive that way, you drive to the supermarket, or you just get a bus very cheaply.
Yeah, yeah.
Going further afield and then train or car is better.
Okay. Now, here's a question that I'm just curious about because I've learned a little bit about this in Italy and France. So, Italy,
Mhm.
you have to, the drivers, obtaining a driver's license in Italy is really challenging for a lot of expats, especially the retirees, because you have to take the test in Italian.
Yeah.
And the difference with France is if you pursue your license within the first year, you don't have to take the test in French. They'll
Okay.
just you just so what's the so how do you obtain a license in Spain? Do you have to take a test in Spanish?
Okay, for UK people, the UK has got an agreement with Spain. So I mean, I've just changed my license. This is quite apt. Basically, when you arrive, you have 6 months to change your license, no matter the UK, US, whatever. What I had to do was I had to take a medical, which is very light medical. It wasn't anything onerous at all. And you do a manual test, which is you actually go into a room to do it. It's not driving at all. And they just they speak to you in Spanish and then go to the left, go to the right, that kind of thing. And then you have to then go to what they call Trafico, which is one of the main driving centres, and exchange your license. That's it. Unfortunately, I do believe for US people that doesn't exist, and I think US people do have to take the test in Spanish.
In
I
Spanish.
and they
Okay.
would also have to do it within 6 months of arrival in the country.
Yeah.
Um, I will check that, but
Yeah, I'll double check.
I,
I'll ask. Yeah. Yeah, because I'm curious about that if they have something similar to Italy or if it's more like France and there's a clause where you can do it for the first year, which makes it a lot easier to obtain.
what I will say just to finish that off, I have do know some people who have taken the Spanish test, native English speakers, and they said it's if you know izquierda for left and no
Yeah.
derecha for right, and you can para for stop, you're going to be okay.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, that's the last thing we have, Michael, is healthcare. So
Okay,
let's talk about healthcare. What's your thoughts on it, the public healthcare system and the private?
okay. The public healthcare system is excellent. I come from the UK, and the UK NHS is renowned as being one of the best in the world. I would argue that at the moment. And Australia is argued to be one of the best in the world. But Spain is probably better than that, better than those two. It's You walk in, point of service, you pay. Sorry, if you're in the public system, you don't pay at the point of service. It's all free. So you're allocated a doctor and a nurse at your med center, and you can call them and make appointments with them directly. In terms of waiting time, there is talk of waiting times being long in Spain, but compared to where I just come from, I can get an appointment within 1 or 2 days, and I don't call that a long time to wait at all.
Hmm.
Uh, so that's again, it's a really well-run system. Having said that, for the visas I mentioned, you almost certainly need to have private medical care. And that's something that when you apply for your visa, you need to make sure that you can't just get any old private care that you think you want. It has to be approved by the immigration authorities in Spain. And there are a list of approved providers. So when you're working with your immigration lawyer to help you with your visa, which I highly recommend people use, make sure they understand the health insurance you need to go with that visa, and to make sure you get a health insurance policy that the immigration authorities are going to be happy with.
Hmm.
The upside of the private healthcare, I mean, it's just like anywhere else. You've got access to where you want for all sorts of things, and you're going to almost certainly be able to get some doctors and nurses who speak English, which is going
Hmm.
to be helpful, very helpful.
Okay. How do you get on the public healthcare system as an expat?
For me, because of my visa, I have become self-employed in Spain. So I pay into the social security system in Spain. So that means that I am allowed to use the Spanish health service. So I actually don't have private care, but a lot of people do. A lot of people in my position, they have access to the public system, but they have private care as well to cover all eventualities. So, and then I think my wife is in the Spanish public system, but that's because there's a reciprocal arrangement between the Spanish and the UK health services that her costs will be covered by the UK, so she can use the Spanish health system. I don't think there's a US arrangement, US Spanish arrangement on that.
Okay. So you're not sure if a US expat can access the public health care.
I think if they pay, you can pay into it, but I'm not sure if that's for Spanish citizens only. Some Spanish, bizarrely, some Spanish citizens aren't in the system when they pay to be in it. But I'm not sure. I'm sure on that. My
Okay.
understanding is that for US citizens coming in on NLV or a DMV, you will have to get private healthcare on top. But as I
Mm.
mentioned earlier, this is a lot cheaper than the healthcare in private healthcare in the US. For example, we know people who their year's private healthcare in Spain is 1 month. It's the same as the cost of 1 month in the US. So that's the kind of difference in cost we're talking about.
Do you know what the cost is that they're paying per person?
It's mainly the example I've seen for middle-aged people who sort of average age, average health, etc., is anything between 1 and 2,000 euros a year for the policy.
Okay. And that's for private healthcare. Does that cover, would that be like a full coverage type?
It would have to be full coverage because the Spanish immigration authorities they don't want any co-payments. They don't want you to have to pay extra to top up your service. So that will cover everything. That's a requirement of the immigration service.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's everything. Michael, I have a curiosity though about Spain because I know that there's a lot of people that have discovered Spain. Malaga is blown up. There's a lot of places along the southern coast that
Yeah.
are obviously that you have a lot of expats from all over the world living in those regions. Um, in your opinion, you've been there twice. This is your second time. You love Spain. Where are the up and coming towns or places, if you know of any, that are still really affordable and they're really unique places to consider?
A good area, an up and coming area that's not been fully discovered or exploited, if I can use that word, that's not quite the right word, is the Costa de la Luz, which is the extreme southwest of Spain, around Cadiz, around that area.
Okay. Yeah.
That's great. It's on the coast. It's the Atlantic coast, not the Mediterranean coast, which is fine. And there's a lot of property down there, or a lot of area around there. That's yes, there are expats there. There's quite a thriving expat community, but I would probably say that's the underdeveloped area that expats will probably look for next, I think.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. Well, Michael, that's everything. Is there anything else you can think of that we didn't discuss that could be beneficial to the viewers thinking about retiring or moving to Spain?
Yeah, there's two things. One thing I alluded to very quickly is that it's probably advisable to use professional experts for many parts of a move to Spain, whether it's moving or getting your healthcare. But if you're only going to use one professional, use an immigration expert to get your visa, because without the visa you don't come in. And there's a lot of potential pitfalls that the immigration law will help you avoid. So that's one thing. And the other thing is when you get to Spain, and it can be a bit frustrating at times, especially if you're not there with the language and authorities are saying no to you, I'd say don't fight the system, go with it. So that's the Spanish way. And if you just roll with the system, you'll have a great time and you'll discover Spain.
All right. Well, great advice. Michael Bailey, thank you so much for taking the time to share
You.
all this information and all the tips on living in Benicassim, Spain.
Thank you, but you're welcome. Really enjoyed it. Thanks.